I'll record on the computer. Hey everyone, welcome to yet another Shred Strong Community Zoom. Want to go ahead and take the opportunity to say thanks for everyone joining. And of course, if you're watching the recording, that's even more awesome whenever you can sneak it in. Today should be pretty short and sweet, to the point, because I know I want to do a little recap on sleep because I didn't get a chance to last week since I was visiting my family. And for those of you who don't know, my mom is she's immobile. So, that trip was definitely not any type of vacation by any means. It was just me more or less taking care of things around the house. So I just couldn't get in. I thought maybe I could get a Zoom in that week while I was there visiting them, but I just could not make it happen. But yeah, thanks for also being flexible at the time because I'm trying to be cognizant of other people in time zones and all around the world, things like that. And then also just folks who have kids and other responsibilities. I know budgeting time for things like this can honestly take some time. So trying to just respect that as much as possible. So that being said, I did want to do a recap on sleep for last month because it is so crucial and so important, especially as training does increase, especially as miles and bike riding does start to increase with change in climate and temperature and things like that. And the more that we can be as recovered as possible, the better. And, just again, quick recap. First things first with sleep, figure out the timing, figure out how long you need to be in bed, because that's going to be the most crucial for you, and just knowing like what your sweet spot hours is. For me it's at least 7 hours. I can usually get by on 6, but do I recommend 6 hours? Not really. I don't really recommend, and neither do health organizations recommend 5 or 6 hours for some folks. It's very rare when someone can actually function and still have their level of alertness and reactivity and responsiveness in a 5 to 6 hour range for sleep. So it's just something to be cognizant of. Usually it's anywhere between 7 and 9 hours is a reasonable sweet spot for most people. Now, of course, if you're a parent, especially a new parent with a smaller child, that is going to be an exception to the rule. So, really, when you're a parent, it's just trying to do the best that you possibly can and not give yourself such a hard time because you have another life that is depending on you for survival. And that in and of itself is a huge responsibility. It's probably the biggest responsibility that a human can take on, really. And you just want to respect what your bandwidth is and what your possibility of getting ample sleep is when you're a new parent. So just doing your best as a parent, that's going to be fantastic. But figuring out how much time you need, figuring out what your sweet spot is, kind of sample it. If you're able to sleep in a little bit, great, give that a try too. For me, I know personally I'm not able to sleep in. It just doesn't happen. I usually always wake up at a certain time every day. But I am sometimes able to fall back asleep, if it is, and even at 6 in the morning and I'm like, oh, I just want to sleep in. I can usually manage to for another hour. Hey Dylan, thanks for joining. But again, everyone's different. So just trying to figure out what the sweet spot is for you in terms of how many hours of sleep you need, and then going from there, counting backwards, figuring out what your bedtime is that you need, to kind of make it happen and get in that sweet spot of time, whether it's 6 to 9 hours of sleep, whatever works for you, but again, trying to aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Then once you figure out your bedtime, okay, great. Now it's a matter of figuring out bedtime routine. What is the bedtime routine that works for you outside of the kids? So getting the kids obviously to bed is a whole to do. I know that. And just trying to get that done. That's your biggest responsibility for the evening, right? So getting them to bed and then figuring out, okay, what's my bedtime look like? What is something that I need to do right before bed? Something that's going to be a little bit more relaxing that doesn't include, hanging out on their phone and scrolling. That being said, though, I have to put on my health coaching hat and say that scrolling on your phone is therapeutic. It feels good. It releases dopamine. It can honestly relieve stress, especially if you do have your algorithm set to where it's bringing in a little bit more positive news feeds and things like that. And it doesn't necessarily maybe include any news cycle news feeds, if that makes sense. Just because, yeah, there's a lot of trauma happening in the world. I'm going to acknowledge that, and I think that that begs to be seen and said. But I think it's important to recognize that when you do open up a social media app, depending on what you allow to enter through that social media app, you can't necessarily control what you're able to see in that app. So that's the one reason why we do try to recommend not using social media, not getting on your phone, unless you're looking at silly cat videos or dog videos or watching people fall, which I know that sounds awful, but I love things like that because it makes me laugh. It gives me not joy, but dog videos and cat videos give me joy. Watching people fall don't does not give me joy, but it does make me laugh, especially if it's a video of me falling. But you know, you run the risk when you open up apps, you run the risk of being exposed to something that can trigger you, first of all, and can also impact your sleep and your ability to sleep. It can be a little bit of a stressor, increase cortisol and things like that, just slightly. And if you're doing those things before trying to get into a restful state or rest and digest state, then that can obviously cause some complications with trying to fall asleep. So that's the only reason we really usually recommend, try not to do social media, but I am trying to show some self-compassion and just recognizing that scrolling on your phone can be therapeutic and it can be something that can be enjoyable. It can bring you joy at the end of the day. It can be exactly what you need at the end of the day. By all means, do it. But what I'm trying to reinforce is the concept of not doing it right up to the point of going to bed or while you're in bed. Um, you know, am I guilty of doing it? Hell yes, of course. I am completely guilty of doing it, especially like, for example, last night did the first Combo Women's program ride of the season, and I was so stoked and I don't have notifications put on my phone. So that's one way I avoid the enticement, the invitation of opening up social media apps. So when I open up my social media apps, it is with intention. It's usually 3 or 4 times a day, just for about 10 minutes, at a time, and maybe even less sometimes. But last night I was excited. I just wanted to see if there was maybe some more photos that folks posted. So sure, I was guilty of doing that, late in the evenings, because we didn't really get home till about 8 or so. But, I left it at that. I left it at signing into the Coma Women's Program group page and just looking at that, which of course is pure joy. That whole feed is nothing but bikes, and it's so great. But there are exceptions, and I know that your personal feed might not include that. Might include that Uncle Jim that maybe has differing opinions than you, that might be a little bit more hostile than maybe what you're ready to actually tolerate before bed. So again, just try to be mindful of that. Social media can bring great joy, and I never have anything negative to say about social media, except that sometimes we might overdo it. So just being mindful of that and having the intention when you do open those apps. All right. So, bedtime routine. What I recommend is that, 30 to 60 minutes before your bedtime, great. Maybe this is when you're washing your face, brushing your teeth, you're relaxing, maybe listening to some relaxing music, stretching a little bit, doing the mobility, doing the yoga program that Agnes did for us here in the Shred Strong program. That's going to be a fantastic thing to do. It's always available to you in the app. Just hit that big blue plus sign in the app and then scroll all the way to the bottom of the workouts section. Once you select Shred Strong, go to workouts. Excuse me, and then choose yoga. But I also have another thing in there. Oh no, did I transfer it in? Hold on a minute. I just had a panic moment as a coach. Um, I may not have transferred the yoga nidra video in there. And the yoga nidra, oh man, friends, let me tell you, personally, and I know we're all different, but for me, like I am a notorious horrible sleeper, just because of like a genetic thing that I have going on in my brain. It's not genetic, but it's just a thing I have in my brain that I'm unable to control. So it impacts my sleep. It impacts my rhythm, my nighttime rhythm, my night and day rhythm. So circadian rhythm, aka circadian rhythm. But the reason that I am so passionate about sleep is because I am notorious at not sleeping really well. And yoga nidra is the one thing that just helps me chill the F out before bed. And especially now, of course, find your person to do yoga nidra. Everyone likes, preferred voices. I am a fan of Jack's. Oh, good. I'm so glad, Renee. I'm so glad you did the yoga nidra through the app. And that's with Jax, who is one of my favorite instructors. And she's such a wonderful human. She lives in Scotland, believe it or not. I know she has an American English accent, but she's from Chicago, lives in Scotland with her boyfriend. And she's just she has a a deeper voice, and it's just a very relaxing voice, which is perfect for yoga nidra because it's really meant to help bring and do a body scan and help you bring yourself down a few notches. And I have yet to go through her entire yoga nidra session, which is 30 minutes long, awake. I fall asleep at some point, sometimes 10 minutes in, sometimes 20 minutes in. I am not sure, but by the time it's done, I'm done. Like I'm already asleep. This is just one of many tools that you can use. There is the option of also doing yoga. That is like a more like yin yoga before bed. Again, mobility, that's something good. Foam rolling, doing some self-care, some self-massage. If you have a partner, talking to them before bed of just about their day and in just a calm manner, and a loving manner. And that's a great time to to show some appreciation for your partner if you can, if you're open to that. I know I'm sounding a little hippy dippy when it comes to that, but I think it can really bring a connection with your partner to to be much more strong if you do have a partner. And if you don't, great, then have like that best friend that maybe you talk before bed. You talk about a date that's gone wrong maybe that week or something, and just have some humor before bed. The other thing, speaking of humor, and laughter is really good before bed. Even just, if you are going to watch TV or are going to watch a video, watching some cat or dog videos that are funny, and even watching like a comedy show. I'm notorious for watching like a 20-minute uh, comedy show. I mean, like Seinfeld. I know Seinfeld, like, oh God, watching Seinfeld now, uh, 30 years after it was made, you're kind of like, oh, I guess they did say that back then. Um, but it is still funny, it is still entertaining. And, watching something like that before bed, again, just some laughter really helps release any stress that you might have before bed. The other thing too that you might or might not want to include in your bedtime routine is, some sort of journaling. I just have something basic, this 5-minute journal. It works for me and it does usually only take about 5 minutes, depending on how complex you want to get with your wording. But it is nice to first of all start your day with like a couple of things that you're grateful for. Set an intention for that day, things that you want to accomplish that day, top 3 things that you want to accomplish that day. And what I like about this journal is at the end of the day, this is when you talk about the 3 amazing things that happened that day. And then, what is something that you could have done better or that would have made the day even better. Because it's nice to have that reflection, especially if you are in a stressful environment or stressful work or job or just life in general. It's just nice to have that moment where you're to yourself and you're thinking to yourself and you're relaxing and you're releasing and you're letting the worries down onto some pieces of paper. You don't have to use this journal. This is just something I've experimented with. I don't know how many journals over the last 20 years or so, because I do actually enjoy journaling because releasing any stressors from your brain onto a piece of paper and then letting go of it that night before bed can be very beneficial for you. It then becomes the problems that are in your mind from work or life or whatever become the paper's problems. And then you can kind of literally close the book on them and then hopefully open your brain up to a little bit more sleep, restful sleep. So that way you're not waking up at 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning with this thought in your mind. And that's usually an indication if you are waking up at the 1 to 3 o'clock in the morning range, or even 4 in the morning, depending on what time you wake up and what time you go to bed. Shift workers, obviously, that is adjusted for you. But if you are waking up in the middle of the night, besides having the need to go to the bathroom, and you are starting to have like a racing brain, that might indicate that you might just need to release a little bit of stressors before bed. So journaling might be for you. And I know, trust me, I know journaling is not for everyone. I know. But even like if you want to add a note to your phone or something and just have it be a brain dump and just write random crap down for like a minute. Anything that's on your mind, just do a brain dump. It's what I call it. It's what other therapists and things like that call it. Um, and not that I'm saying I'm a therapist, I am definitely not a therapist. But just saying like that's what, health coaches have learned from the therapy world is that having some sort of brain dump mechanism can be beneficial for a lot of people. So it's like journaling, but not. All right. So it might be the journaling that might work for people who don't journal. All right. So for those of you who maybe aren't into journaling or it's just not your thing, great. Same thing with meditation. I know it's not for everyone. It's been a life-saving thing for me personally over the years. But again, it's not for everyone. But even just doing some sort of breath work or just having contemplative, that was a hard word, moment to yourself before bed where you can just kind of pause. Again, do the reflection on the day. What could you have maybe done a little differently? What went really well? That way you can celebrate your wins for the day. And then, any stressors that you might have on your mind could be just a wonderful thing to even think about. But again, there's a little bit of difference with the precision of writing something down because there is a larger release that happens for the human brain when you actually write it down and put it on to an external object instead of just having it linger around in your head. Um, so bedtime routine, again, it can vary for everyone. Meditation, yoga nidra, mobility, talking to your partner, reading. Reading is a huge thing. So reading is going to be the remaining catch-all for folks who maybe don't appreciate any of the other things that I've listed. Reading or some sort of even like doodling or art or a Zen tangle. If you know what that is, it's basically like a form of doodling with certain strokes. But all of those can help you just downregulate without using technology and help you just kind of ease into the evening. And reading is usually the coup de grace for a lot of folks right before bed. Just trying to, again, read one page, which of course you can read more than that, but give yourself a goal to read at least one page. And sometimes that's enough to make your eyes sleepy and make your brain sleepy so you can go to bed. All right. So figure out your bedtime routine. I will say that some research has shown that taking a warm shower or bath, excuse me, God, I like hammered my lunch before this because I was done coaching and I ran here and wanted to hop on. So I like housed my food fairly quickly, mindfully, but very quickly. So I apologize. But I will say, got so distracted by my little burp that I totally forgot what the hell I was saying. Um, Again, bedtime routine can vary. Figure out what you need to do, but sometimes taking a warm shower or bath before bed can help you. It gets you warm because then your body naturally cools right before bed. So it's kind of one of these weird tricks for a lot of folks. I don't recommend doing like a cold plunge before bed because that can sometimes amp certain individuals up, but doing something warm can actually help entice you into sleep and make you feel a little bit cozier. Now, in terms of setting for sleep is going to be incredibly important because you do want a cool room. So, not warm, which of course can be difficult during the summer months, especially if you don't have air conditioning, you're in the mountains or something like that. But try to have a cooler room, dress coolly, have a cooler, sheet over you if you need to. Have it be dark and have it be cozy. Those are going to be the biggest things, besides having a quiet environment. So, having some sort of quiet environment, unless white noise benefits you. If you find it beneficial, then great. Having a white noise machine on, or even using a white noise app on your phone, maybe have it across the room, that might help, or having a fan run or something like that can really help. But cool, dark, cozy, quiet. When it comes to dark, it's basically just putting shades on the windows, even having an eye mask. I should have brought mine up from down upstairs. I have like a silk eye mask, which I know sounds super fancy, but it wasn't that expensive. But it helps so much with just darkening everything and making things make you ease into bed. The other thing that an eye mask does is it signals your brain that, hey, I'm sleeping because it's part of your bedtime routine. So before you hop into bed, putting the eye mask on and just putting it over here. Great. That's starting to signal, okay, I'm getting ready for bed. Now I'm going to read for a little bit. And then I'm going to be done reading and then I'm going to put my eye mask on, go to bed. So it can help with darkness, keeping the area dark and helping you ease into sleep. And then also just helping you establish that routine with your brain. Now, in terms of quiet, now, if you have a partner who might snore or toss and turn a lot, sometimes having some earplugs can help. Now, I know that earplugs are not going to be for everyone because, yeah, some folks have kids. They want to not wear earplugs because they want to be more alert for if the kid needs anything or something like that. I get it. I totally get it. Earplugs are not necessary, but they're a tool that you can use to help keep the room as quiet as possible. Um, of course, there's foam earplugs, there's silicone ones that are going to be reusable. And I know for me, I have silicone that are reusable that are actually washable too. I think they're from Happy Ears and it's like the Swedish company. And I just bought the Discovery Pack. Actually, I didn't. Aaron bought the Discovery Pack. She didn't like them, so I washed them and I gave them a try, and they worked for me. And they actually fit my tiny little ears really well. So, but with a discovery pack, it comes in 3 different sizes. But again, that's just one option for, a lot of folks to give a try when they're exploring if it works for them at all, because again, earplugs are not going to be for everyone, but they can be for a lot of folks. So it is something that's worth exploring when it comes to bedtime. And I personally, I don't wear my earplugs every night just because, yeah, sometimes it is kind of weird. Now, another element to setting for bed is just to try to have like no phone zone, as best as you can. I know it's going to be pretty difficult or pretty impossible for folks to do this, but having the phone either away from you is going to be beneficial, having it across the room if you do use it as your alarm clock, but it just helps prevent you from, instead of it being on your nightstand and it being enticing for you to actually pick up and scroll, it allows you to just have space between you and the physical phone, which is great. Um, and that's pretty much it when it comes to the basics for sleep and things like that. Now, of course, leading up to sleep, try to minimize, any hydration that you're having, especially if you do wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom quite often. Great. Try to give yourself that at least hour to 90 minutes or so of not really having any fluids or many fluids at all before bed. Same thing with a meal. So your last meal of the day before bed, trying to space it to where you're at least 2 to 3 hours before you actually go to bed. That's when you're eating because you want to allow your body enough time to digest. Um, and then last but not least, the other thing to consider is that if you are waking up in the middle of the night, sure, I mentioned if you are waking up in the middle of the night earlier, how it can be a stressor. It can be a little bit of an increase in cortisol. Could mean that you just start are having some things on your mind. So that might be making things a little bit more restless for you, and that can make an impact out honestly on how well you can sleep. So that's why doing the brain dumping before bed can help. But the other thing that can also cause you to want to wake up in the middle of the night is hunger, right? If you are in an energy deficit, if you are dieting, if you are in a fat loss phase or anything like that, and you're not eating enough, your body is going to kind of start to trigger, and cortisol could be a little bit more spiked because here's the thing, cortisol is not a bad thing. I know everyone talks about cortisol and it's scary. Elevated cortisol means, so many bad things are going to happen to you. Um, it's not always the case, and I feel like there's a lot of fear mongering around that. Uh, and other researchers agree with that. So take this with a grain of salt, but just know that your cortisol is purposely increasing before bed because that is actually how humans wake up. Like that's how we get started in the day is our cortisol naturally increases and ramps up. So having a little bit of an elevated cortisol in the morning is normal because again, that's what gets us out of sleep. Because in the sleep state, fairly paralyzed, we're dreaming, we're resting and recovering, and cortisol helps us get out of sleep. So um, the thing is, we just don't want to increase cortisol any more than kind of like baseline. Sometimes being in a fat loss phase can cause the cortisol to be increased because you're eating at a deficit. And eating at a deficit, especially for a long period of time, can be stressful on the body. So that's why it can be hard to lose those 10 pounds. It can be hard to lose those extra 5 pounds, like whatever. Or if you have like a little bit extra belly fat that you've been trying and making an effort to get rid of, stress could be a pretty strong culprit when it comes to that. Okay. So that's what we talked about. We talked about figuring out timing, bedtime routine, what that looks like, the setting of the bedtime or setting of sleep for cool, dark, cozy, and quiet. No phone zone can be fairly important. And then some tools you can use are earplugs, an eye mask, and white noise machine, things like that. Again, the other tool to use is yoga nidra if you're open to that or doing some sort of mobility before bed. Mwah, chef's kiss, and that should be good. All right, so that's kind of the summary on sleep and just getting a little bit more of that implemented. I did want to take a moment to also shout out to the winners for this consistency challenge this past week. So we have Kristen here. Kristen here, you won the health coaching session with me. And then we also have, here, hold on a minute. Where is it? There it is. Alex, you won the boop. Alex, you won here. There we go. Alex, you won the recipe book from Jessica. So kudos and congrats to both Kristen and Alex. I'm so excited for you both. Stay tuned for an email from me. And it's kind of nice because I actually just saw Kristen last night at the mountain biking ride with Convo Women. So that was exciting. But this month, April Consistency Challenge is all about mobility and just sneaking in 1 minute. And I know you're probably thinking, Jen, that's too effing easy. And there's a reason for it because great, it's just a matter of getting you to show up because that is how we build the habit, is just getting to show up for the actual habit that you're wanting to build. So giving yourself a minute is very like low-hanging fruit. It's super easy, very simple to implement, even on the busiest, excuse me, the busiest of days, lunch. And just trying to manage that and get it in as best as possible, as consistently as possible. Again, you can use the mobility drills that I have in the app if you want. You can even do the yoga that you want, from Agnes. But I will say, just choose one mobility movement. If it feels good to you, great. Do it again just for a minute, and just aim as low as you can. And then if you can and you want to do extra, by all means, do extra because that's what's really going to be awesome is building in the habit. And then yeah, if you have extra time and you're feeling good, go along with that and embrace the feeling good, and the goal is to try to do these mobility sessions either before or after bike rides, preferably after, or after any strength training sessions, or even before bed. So that's kind of the way to do it. In terms of questions that I had a couple of questions, or a couple of the same questions about um, traveling. So it's getting to be summer break for a lot of folks, and folks are going to be traveling soon. So they're going to be doing family vacations and things like that. And they're like, hey, how much fitness am I going to lose when I'm traveling? Quite honestly, like one individual, she's going overseas with her family into Europe, and she's going to be there for a month. She's like, Jen, what's going to happen? What am I going to do? I'm not going to have my bike. It's fine. I'm here to say that yes, it will stink, perhaps suck, when you get back home and you do your first few workouts because you're going to feel like, oh man, I am so weak. I am so exhausted on the bike. This feels like torture. This feels like really hard work. And it's fine because your body has not done that movement for the past month. All right. It's fine. That's normal. It doesn't necessarily mean that you lost everything and you lost everything that you gained. Because I think that's where our brain goes, is we automatically think that, oh man, I haven't worked out. I've been on vacation for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or however long, right? And then we think we've lost everything from the past. And that is simply not the case. What it feels like you did, all right? It feels like you did lose everything and you didn't. But what's cool is that you just have to get back into it and give yourself that week or two once you get back into it and feel a little sore and know that soreness is going to be normal and then kind of go from there. All right. And know that, like, okay, just give it a few sessions and you're going to feel normal eventually. You're not going to feel like this permanently. So we think, first of all, that we lost everything, and then we think that it's gonna be so hard to get the gains back or the strength back. Just be patient, give yourself a couple weeks, get back in the groove, and you're going to be feeling fine. You'll be amazed actually at how many like higher level athletes that I've worked with, in terms of like pro or former pro, where they have gone on a vacation, didn't really do much because again, they didn't really have access to a gym or things like that. They just maybe, maintained body weight and stuff, body weight movements, which is going to be the next tip. But then they come back and then we'll do it like a test week, 2 weeks later, and they freaking PR and stuff, like numbers that they haven't seen in years. So just know it's just because your body hasn't necessarily been doing it for a little while. So you're going to feel extra sore and you're going to feel a little bit like it's just harder work. All right. Harder efforts. And that's normal because you haven't done it in a while. Now, the other thing when you're traveling is do the body weight workouts. They're in the program for a reason. Again, hit that beautiful big blue plus sign in the app. You can choose body weight. I literally do this for 100% of my clients across the board, even my private clients. I will always have some sort of body weight routine waiting for my people because I want something. Because here's the thing, life happens. You're gonna go on a last minute work call or a last minute work trip or a last minute family trip if something happens and it's an emergent situation, you're being called off to someplace at the last minute, that's just going to happen. It's just life, right? The other option is maybe some days you're just not going to feel like going into the gym, which is also completely relatable, especially when the weather is as beautiful as it is right now. Great, do that 10-minute body weight routine, because that 10-minute body weight routine is going to be a beautiful warm up right before a workout. And you can do it with or without the finisher if you want, but the body weight routines maybe take 10 to 15 minutes tops. And then you can go about your day, go for that bike ride, whatever you need. And what's cool is you're still maintaining that strength and increasing your strength as you go along, because the body weight routines usually always include core work. So you can always increase in the core work or core strength. But giving yourself that 10 to 15 minutes of just you time while you're on a trip, while you're on a vacation or what have you, or while you're just too busy. And again, we're trying to aim for all or something instead of all or nothing. All right. And that's going to be the key, is just really focusing on that all or something instead of all or nothing. And yeah, we just sometimes don't have enough self compassion when it comes to actually doing some of these workouts. And we think we don't have time, we don't have any time. If you have 5 minutes, you have time to work out. It's just not maybe going to be as intense as you want, but it's going to be movement regardless. And sometimes it just feels good. It can feel really good to do that. But yeah, that's all I've got for you, friends, so far. Hey, Aaron, thanks for joining. But any additional questions, feel free to unmute and then we can hop off here. Like I said, it was going to be pretty short and sweet and to the point. But those are the questions that I had received via messenger or email. But yeah, a couple of the same questions regarding, just working out while traveling and how much strength you can lose while traveling. And the answer is basically not a ton of strength. Because here's the thing, we have to remember that maintaining strength is also progress, because maintaining is still progress. You don't always have to be increasing strength. You can just be increasing how easy something is feeling, how more competent you feel when you're doing a certain movement, i.e. Bulgarian split squats or something like that, or single leg deadlifts. Those things are still indicators of progress. And I think we just need to embrace them, and just recognize that, yeah, these are still progress elements. And we don't always have to be adding weight to the barbell. We can just be improving our movement quality. That is huge progress, like metric that I think is often overlooked. So hopefully that helps alleviate some stress and worries about that. All right. Any questions? Feel free to unmute or add to the chat, whatever's easiest for you. And if there's no questions, then we're done. We're done, and you can go about the rest of your day.
I probably have a question, and sorry for joining late. Stupid work.
You're good. It happens.
You see my office. It's very exciting.
There you go. What's up, Aaron?
Hair and stuff is done. So as you know, I have a race coming up May 4th. Mm-hmm. And so kind of, if you could just quickly, kind of what are your thoughts on reducing the weight load, just staying activated, kind of high level? What are the things I should focus on in the next, say, 3 weeks or so?
I mean, you don't want to be setting any PRs. Like, that's the thing, because your race, that's the goal. Like, you're doing the gym work to supplement that. So all of your biking and everything like that is what is most applicable. So now is not necessarily time to keep adding weight to the barbell or, even the dumbbells, but you do still want to kind of move. Because here's the thing, like, if you stop moving, because now your body's used to like squatting and deadlifting and all this other stuff. So now it just might be a matter of, okay, maybe you switch away from barbell deadlifts and maybe you just do like dumbbell deadlifts and they're just just below your knees or something like that. So you're doing the movement and you're doing the hip hinge movement, you're doing the squatting movement. Maybe it's just a goblet squat instead of the barbell squat, or something like that. Especially the week before, if you need a 1 or 2 week deload, or, whatever you want to call it, obviously in the triathlon Ironman world. Taper, exactly. Taper's the other one. So like taper week, great. That's when you want to do like maybe some more body weight stuff, dumbbell things where you're still mimicking the movements, but then you're just reducing the load. And again, that's because it's intentional for a race. For me, I personally don't lift heavy the week before. Like next week is taper week for me because I have a race down in Southern Colorado. And it's just one of those situations where it's like, okay, great. I know I'm not going to be doing any heavy like barbell deadlifts or barbell squats that week, but I'm going to go ahead and switch to kettlebells, and just do like that movement and mimic the same movement, but just in a different modality. But I'd say like usually 2 weeks out, just because it is a long endurance event. That's usually the litmus test. 3 weeks before, you can still kind of, do the barbell stuff if it feels good, as long as nothing's giving you any nagging injuries or nagging aches and pains, then yeah, continue that, things as normal. But maybe don't go to 1 to 2 reps in reserve. Maybe stick around in the 2 to 3 reps in reserve. That way you're a little bit more comfortable. And then the 2 weeks before, if you do a 2 week taper, just again doing lighter weights, switching off from the barbell if you want to. I mean, everyone's different, because everyone kind of responds and feels differently. So
And
you
every
kind of have
taper is
to,
different.
you what?
Every taper is different.
Yeah, and every taper is different, exactly, especially as the season progresses. Like your end of season taper is going to be a lot different than like your beginning season taper or mid-season taper. So, again, it's just different, but you kind of have to play it by ear with what you need. So yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then I'm kind of rolling into race season where I've got just a ton of like random things. So just again,
Hmm.
kind of play it by ear, like maybe the week before go a little lighter. Otherwise, just stay on
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, just stay on program, keep it as, business as usual because your body is adjusting and already used to the strength. And the worst thing to do is to take strength away completely because then you're going to be, it's kind of funny how the joints work because then your joints are like, the fuck? Like, hold on a minute. I got so used to doing, XYZ and now I'm not doing crap. Like, what's going on? And then it can start to kind of, revolt a little bit or cause a little bit of aches and pains for some folks that maybe don't necessarily feel any aches or pains. So yeah, the elusive listen to your body, which I know is, again, it's elusive and not everyone's like, oh, but really what that means is just getting in touch with how your body feels when you're moving it. So yeah, yeah. And good luck, Erin.
So we got a ways to go still.
Yeah,
So
but still, it's gonna be fun. It'll be
that's
fun. It'll be great.
how I feel about my daily sauna time. It's terrible.
It's what you feel what?
My daily sauna heat
Oh yeah.
acclimation protocol, that's the worst, but that's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, the heat acclimation is never fun. Oh my God. Well, good luck. Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. All right,
I
you
know.
had a chat question come in.
Yeah, Nicole. So Nicole had a good question about what's a good sub for Nordic curls, perhaps prone hamstring curls with a dumbbell. Yeah, that's one way you can do it. Um, Nordic curls are going to be anything that's going to really focus on, anything that is hamstring centric. So yeah, hamstring curl with a dumbbell. If you have access to a hamstring curl machine at the gym, that's an option because I know some folks have cable machines at home or at the gym. That's an option that I ask for folks to do, or even like the hamstring curl on a box, elevating your feet onto a box kind of makes it look like you're doing a glute bridge, but that's another option too, just because again, that's going to be low equipment need for it and it still works your hamstrings. But what I usually recommend is folks to focus on digging their heels in because that'll really activate the hamstrings even more. You can also do banded hamstring curls. They're just a little awkward to get in and out of, and they can be pretty effective. Hamstring curls on a Swiss ball. So you're going to have your torso on the floor and your feet, your heels on the Swiss ball or medicine ball, and you're going to dig in your heels and roll the ball towards you. So you're going to be kind of in a glute bridge position with your feet on the ball, and then you're going to be digging your heels in and curling your legs in towards you, and that definitely works your hamstrings. If you have a propensity or a tendency to get hamstring cramps, that is usually when the hamstring cramps will happen. So just try to keep your pelvis tilted under a little bit. And if you get a cramp, stop what you're doing, stretch it out if you need to. But your body will acclimate to that. So yeah, that's a good thing. I know, and I want to talk about that because actually that was a question I had from one other client, but that was I didn't even think about using that as a question for this. Um, but yeah, she asked about that this past week, and I had the same response for her. And the reason is because Nordic curls for her don't feel comfortable on her knees. She gets some knee pain when when she's doing those Nordic curls. And regardless whether she's putting yoga mat or padding underneath, it's just not very comfortable because she also has really tight quads. So it's just something to think about. Yeah, good question, Nicole. Thanks for asking, and good to see you on here. All right, friends, I think that's all the questions that we have for the day. I just want to say thanks for joining. I know we're trying to keep them, I'm trying to keep them pretty succinct and to the point, and then stay tuned. Next one will probably be in about 4 weeks because I don't have any races then or anything like that. And yeah, thanks, Nicole. Thanks again for joining. And again, if you have questions between now and our next Zoom, oh my God, don't wait until the next Zoom call. Just ask the question. I'm a message away in the app. I will say, if you have a specific question, though, message me directly in the app or add it to the group chat in the app. And sometimes adding it to the group chat, don't feel stupid, all right? Because there's no such thing as a stupid question when it comes to this stuff. Because chances are other people probably have this question, and I need to know the questions because then I know what people need to know answers for. And sometimes maybe I can even, pop in and add a comment or a message about that. But don't be shy because there's no such thing as a stupid question. And it's highly likely someone else has that question. So don't be shy about asking in the group chat. But the reason I'm saying to ask a question in a message is because then I will see that so much quicker because I only allocate a couple of days a week to look at workouts in a group program because I really need to focus on, not that you all aren't important, but I really need to focus on my high touch one-on-one clients so they get my attention first. So it's kind of one of those things where I need to balance my attention. Um, so, they get my attention in terms of working out and analysis because I'm being paid to analyze each of their workouts. So just know, still have love for my group program. Of course, my Shred Strong is like my baby, but I might miss any questions that you put in a comment in a workout. Okay. So I just don't want that to happen. That's like my worst fear. So if you have a question, add it to group chat or add it to a message right to me. And don't worry, again, I don't have my notifications on. Some people are worried because like I have a couple friends who are in the program and they're like, well, I'm just worried about disturbing you. Girl, you're not going to disturb me because I have no notifications on my phone. Like you're fine. If you have a question that comes up, message me. And if it happens to be sent over the weekend, it's fine. I'll see it first thing Monday. Okay. Anyways, thanks again for joining. I hope you all have a beautiful night and enjoy this amazing weather. And then I will see you next time. All right. So stay tuned. Bye.